The Australian Outback is an ancient land of mystery, a world unto itself. Its stark beauty and quiet earthiness welcome and relax you. But don't get too comfortable. In the Outback, home to some of the deadliest creatures on Earth, death can come at any moment, or it can be long and agonizing. As is the case in most places, the Outback's most dangerous predator is man. In this case, a man with a welcoming face and a talent for calm deception. An evil man who, during a prodigious rash of attacks in the 1990s, hunted, tortured, and killed his fellow humans in the Australian state of New South Wales. Today on Scream to Screen, we'll go down under to hunt down the terrifying true story behind the 2005 horror film Wolf Creek, which was based on the grisly real-life murders by Australian serial killer Ivan Milat. But before we get started, make sure you subscribe to Graveyard Shift and let us know in the comments which true-life horror stories you'd like us to cover in the future. Now, let's hear about the Australian backpacker killer and how his fiendish exploits led to a boom in Australia's horror film industry. In January of 2005, the world was introduced to Wolf Creek, a movie filled with blood, crucifixion, gun violence, and a Bowie knife used to kill, torture, and maim. The gory action and constant suspense led Esquire magazine to label Wolf Creek the 14th scariest film of all time. Perhaps more terrifying is the knowledge that this movie was based on the real-life killing spree of Ivan Milat, known as the Australian backpacker killer. Though many liberties were taken with the story and the production of the movie, Milat's actual murders were no less chilling than the gore fest the viewer experiences in the theater. Ivan Milat was the fifth of 14 children, the son of a Croatian emigrant. Growing up in the suburbs of New South Wales, he and his brothers were well known to the local police. At the age of 13, he was placed in a residential school. By 17, he graduated to a juvenile detention center. During his young adult years, he spent more time in jail than out, and while he was awaiting trial for his third crime, the abduction and sexual abuse of a pair of hitchhikers, he faked his own suicide and fled to New Zealand. He eventually returned to Australia, and in 1975, Ivan Milat took a job as a truck driver, and for 20 years he worked all over the state of New South Wales. He was not a good man, and these 2 decades of freedom, cruising the superhighways, allowed him to entertain his favorite hobby: kidnapping, torturing, and killing backpackers. On September 19, 1992, a body was found by 2 men out for a run. A second body was located hours later. They were confirmed as 2 backpackers who'd been reported missing. A year later, bones led to the bodies of 2 more backpackers. A month after that, in November of 1993, a skeleton was found. Confusing investigators, the woman, Simone Schmidt, was wearing someone else's clothes, those of another missing backpacker, Anya Habscheid. Anya and yet another skeleton were found later in a shallow grave. 7 bodies in a year. Someone had been busy, and police were struggling to find the killer. A list of 230 suspects was whittled down to 23 thanks to link analysis technology, but that was still too many. The break came when Paul Onions, who'd been backpacking in Australia, accepted a ride from a man he knew only as Bill. Once in his vehicle, Bill pulled out a revolver and some rope, but Paul somehow managed to escape, giving police their first eyewitness account and description. When Ivan Milat was finally caught, police discovered a cache of weapons, including several rifles, a Browning pistol, and a Bowie knife. They also recovered items belonging to several of the victims. There was no doubt that this was the killer. A search of Milat's mother's home, as well as the homes of 5 of his brothers, turned up even more items belonging to the victims. Though he was convicted of the murder of 7 backpackers, some believe Ivan Milat's body count could be as high as 37. Milat used the remote areas of New South Wales as his playground of torture. It was probably inevitable that the movie industry would discover its potential for scaring people. But could an imaginary tale compete with the real-life evil of someone like Ivan Milat? Writer Greg McLean accepted that challenge. McLean wanted to write the perfect horror movie, a slasher film centering around a relentless killer. But McLean was unsatisfied with the script he was working on. Something was missing. It needed an inspiration. McLean scoured media reports looking for an idea when he stumbled across a report on Ivan Milat. Writer Greg McLean had his inspiration, and the screenplay for Wolf Creek was born. The movie opens with Ben buying a used car. His friends, Liz and Christy, are coming from England to Australia for a last great adventure before giving in to the commitments of real life. They meet up in Broome, pack up their car, and head out on the Great Northern Highway toward Wolf Creek National Park. The ride is peaceful, and the lack of other traffic exposes the desolation of the journey. Perfect for three young friends looking for serenity before the great hustle of responsibilities overtakes them. After hours of travel, filled with laughter and fellowship, the trio arrive at the Wolf Creek meteorite crater. A sign lets them know it's a 3-hour hike to the rim. The local Aboriginal tribes have a legend that the crater was formed when the evening star crashed to Earth. But most scientists believe it was formed by a meteorite. Whatever caused it, the young people are awestruck at the majesty of this crater, still almost perfectly round after 12,000 years. Liz asks Ben, why here? Why would a meteor crash in Australia so far away from everything at this precise spot? Ben suggests maybe it was just drawn to this place. His words reflect the situation in which the three unsuspecting hikers will soon find themselves. They were somehow drawn to this spot, for no particular reason, just like the doomed meteorite that made the crater they've come to see. When the young people return to Ben's car after their adventure, it won't start. With night falling in this remote area, the three assume they'll be stranded there all night. Fortunately, a local happens by and offers to tow the car to his campsite. His name is Mick. He's the sort of Australian character the girls had expected, much more so than even Ben. His heavy accent, grizzled but friendly face, and homegrown humor put the group at ease. They sit around the campfire, drinking the water Mick has offered them, relaxed and happy that such a good person happened to show up when they needed help. That's the last thing they remember before passing out. Mick, not such a good person after all, had drugged the water. When Liz comes to, she's bound and gagged, and this is the beginning of a horrific sequence of torture and death. Liz does manage to escape and shoots Mick in the neck, but this movie has much more planned for its audience and for its victims. Liz discovers a video camcorder. Watching what's on it, she realizes that Mick had been spying on them for hours. They'd been targeted and stalked. And they're not the first backpackers to fall prey to this outback predator. Liz sees videos of entire families being hunted. Mick, of course, finds her and subjects Liz to his skill with a Bowie knife. Her fingers are cut off, and she's stabbed in the back and paralyzed. Both Liz and Christy suffer repeated bloody horrors. The film doesn't miss a chance to capture all the blood and screams of each and every moment, dispassionately showing the audience exactly how ruthless and cruel this murderer is. Mick doesn't just stab Liz, he twists the knife as she screams. Christy is tortured, and then tortured again. Even the campsite offers gory evidence of the killer's state of mind, showing us how much delight he has in his passion for death. Bloody body parts and entire corpses hang rotting around the camp, gruesome treasures of his past encounters with backpackers. Meanwhile, Ben awakens in a mine shaft and discovers he's been nailed to a crucifix. In a final spasm of ghastly horror, Ben escapes the cross by tearing his hands through the nails. The shocking scene could be symbolic. Does Ben represent the good of the world and the suffering that must happen? Is the scene simply a chance for the filmmakers to show how far a person might go to survive? Or is it just a case of good old-fashioned gratuitous gore? Any way you look at it, it's a powerful comment on the sadistic depravity of the evil Mick. Yes, Mick is a terrifying monster, not just because of the torture and death, not even because of his obvious delight in the suffering of his victims. Perhaps the scariest thing about Mick is that when we first meet him, he's so human. He offers to help the three friends when they are most vulnerable. His friendly visage hides the hideous demon inside. The movie Wolf Creek works not because it sets the audience up for relentless terror, but because it merely acts as an observer, offering no reaction or judgment, but instead bearing unblinking witness to a killer's horrific crimes and the excruciating suffering of his victims. The character of Mick was based loosely on Ivan Milat, and the events depicted in Wolf Creek were more the product of a writer's creative mind than actual events. For example, none of Milat's victims were found crucified. He never killed 3 people at a time, as far as we know, preferring to work mostly with pairs of hikers. And Malat was caught, though it took a team of 50 police officers surrounding his house to finally take him into custody. Even though the events of the film are fiction, the actual bodies of Malat's victims did show signs of torture. Is it possible that they suffered at least as much as the victims of the fictional Mick? Does the movie give us a glimpse of the horror that each of Malat's victims must have gone through? It was true that Malat took the backpackers into a remote forest area, away from where he picked them up. Mick also took his victims back to his bloody base camp. But Malat didn't have a camp filled with limbs and rotting flesh. He did keep souvenirs of his victims at his home, and shockingly, at the homes of his mother and siblings. And unlike Mick, who just left his victims where they were killed, the real-life Malat buried all of his murders, with possibly dozens of victims still lost, buried in the vastness of the Australian bush. Reviews of Wolf Creek were mixed. Some critics found its excessive and blatant violence and gore cheap. Some simply walked out of the theater. But others were more positive, impressed with the narrative and the treatment of the characters. No matter what the critics felt, the box office loved the movie. Made for slightly over $1 million, it boasted a profit of almost $30 million at the box office, and is one of several films released at that time, credited with a substantial boom of Australian horror films. A sequel, Wolf Creek 2, came out in 2013 with Mick, modeled once again on Ivan Milat, finding another pair of backpackers to torture. A TV series also called Wolf Creek was released, with actor John Jarratt reprising his role once again as the sadistic and xenophobic Mick. The story of Ivan Milat didn't end with his capture. A year after being sent to prison for his crimes, Milat attempted an escape with another prisoner, George Savas, a former Sydney counselor and convicted drug dealer. The escape was unsuccessful, and the next day, Savas's body was found hanged in his cell, prompting Milat to be moved to a maximum security section of the prison. For the next few years, he was unsuccessful in his appeal, so he tried a new tactic. Using a plastic knife, he cut off his little finger, intending to mail it to the High Court of Australia. He didn't get the chance or his appeal and died in prison in 2019. What could have caused Ivan Milat to perform such horrible acts of violence? Was it the way he was raised? The family he was born into? We may never know. Like Wolf Creek, there was a sequel to the story of Ivan Milat. In 2012, Milat's great-nephew, Matthew Milat, was sentenced to 43 years for the murder of a 17-year-old. Matthew bludgeoned him with an axe, while his friend, Chen Klein, recorded the gory and violent killing on his cell phone. Also, the rock quarry that was used in the film as Mick's gruesome torture camp was the site of an actual murder, and the local residents were angry, assuming that the movie was based on that crime. But it wasn't. It was based on the crimes of Ivan Milat. John Jarratt, the actor playing the evil Mick Taylor, really brought his character to life, giving us a glimpse into the mind of a heartless killer. His talents helped Wolf Creek inspire a next generation of horror films from the land down under. So what do you think? What is it that puts a victim in the path of a killer? Like the ancient meteor, are people just drawn to the wrong place at the wrong time? How many hapless backpackers became victims of Ivan Milat? And does the fact that Wolf Creek is based on an actual serial killer make the movie more or less terrifying? Let us know in the comments below if you have the courage. Don't forget to like, share, and subscribe for more videos from the Graveyard Shift. And be sure to check back next time to find out what else will make it from scream to scream.